Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's the SCB Steelers Podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. We are, of course, very proud to be part of the Variety Sports Network. And I am coming to you from the Frank Walker Law Studio. Thank you to Frank. Thank you to Variety Sports. And a special shout out tonight to the fine folks of DEK Roofing who have agreed to once again sponsor this program for the next year. Thank you to everybody down there at the Deck Bar who's probably, well, at this time, they're probably asleep. But I'm sure they've had their shots of Screwball peanut butter whiskey by now. So cheers and thanks again for another great sponsorship. That would be wonderful. Thank you so much as I drink. All right. Also of good news. Well, kind of. You'll notice that Scarps is not with us tonight. There is a potential chance that he may be welcoming baby number 2. We think it still might be a couple days away, but they're playing it very close to the. What is it? Close to the vest? Is that the proper terminology?
Yeah.
Close to the vest. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you've listened to this program or watched this program long enough, you'll know that the first Scarpino child arrived immeditely following a podcast in which he was in no shape to be driving, but did anyway. And it's just the shit that we talk about on this program. But Mr. Tripping Balls on Ayahuasca should be joining us at any time. I'm not real sure what he's doing. But the idea of tonight's program will cover some of the cover some of the things related to the NFL owners meeting this past week. A quick synopsis of where the Steelers are in terms of their quarterback situation, because it doesn't need to be any longer than that. And then we'll dive into the draft. And tonight we're going to talk pretty specifically defensive players. Guys we like, guys we think have Pittsburgh Steeler written all over them, guys that
sorry, Mark. This comment in the chat is just killing me.
So Scarps was finally able to stop masturbating long enough to knock her up again. Mark Malone with the stash coming in strong. Well played.
It's like a starting pitcher who throws 105 on his first pitch. It's just like, I mean, that's starting with a heater on this show. You know, it's like, where do we go from here?
Right. I mean, really, the program should just end at that point. Yeah. I mean, that is coming in quite strong there. But anyway, that's what we're going to do tonight. Talk those things, and best wishes to Scarps and his wife, as well, Ian, you and I both know it's a process, and you just obviously hope for the best. So we'll he's a known chronic masturbator. Mark Malone coming in hot tonight. Whoa. Oh man.
Scarp is getting absolutely wrecked in the chat, and he's not
Can
even
you imagine?
here.
Can you imagine people coming onto this program for the very first time tonight going, what the hell's happening?
What did I just tune into? Yeah.
No, Vinny. No, he's got a long way to go, buddy. He's even when this one arrives, he's still down a starting 5. But he's trying. Anyway, welcome to everybody in the chat. Hopefully everybody's had a good week, and I hope that you are all safe and sound where you are. I know the country's seen a ton of really bad weather, just in terms of tornadoes in recent days, and lots of heavy rain and ice north of where I am, ridiculous amounts of ice. And so hopefully everybody's good. Ian, what is one of the developments that came from the owners' meetings this week regarding stuff on the field of play? What is one of those items that, I don't know, maybe caught your attention the most?
I think the one that caught my attention the most was that they enacted the change on the kickoff rule to move the ball up to the 35-yard line, which was dumb to begin with. This whole kickoff thing's dumb. And then they didn't enact the one rule that made sense, which was a defensive holding not being an automatic first down. It would still be a 5-yard penalty, just not, the proposal was to not make it an automatic first down. And we discussed that at length on the show. I don't need to go back into it. If people are curious on our thoughts, go back a few shows and we talked a lot about it. But the one that made sense they didn't do, and the one that was stupid to begin with they did. So I was kind of like, I don't know what the owners are doing here, but it's really honestly, it's all about creating more offense, and they want to create more offense and more scoring and more points for Vegas and fantasy football and all that stuff. And that's really where the owners are now. I think was my big takeaway is overall with everything they decided is it's all about offense, and they're never going to do anything to help the defense.
Nope. Ben, welcome. I understand you're not 100% tonight, but we appreciate you. Like every NFL player, we appreciate you giving it everything you've got. Anything from the NFL owners meeting that stuck out to you?
A few things. I had no problem with them not making defensive holding an automatic first down. Initially, I was for the proposal. I thought it was great, but then I thought about it again, and I was like, 75% of those penalties happen beyond 5 yards anyway. And if a guy is getting beaten early in a play, he's just going to hold thinking, you know what, I'll just give up 5 yards. I'm not going to worry about it. So it's a license for DBs to go ahead and hold. I think that's why it didn't pass.
Mm-hmm.
As for the kickoff, we've never liked kickoff on this show. I'm still not a fan.
No.
Moving out to the 35 makes sense. They're trying to encourage more returns rather than just having guys kick it into the end zone and bring it out to the 30. And, Tomlin, before last season started, said, I anticipate a lot of touchbacks because I think the average during the preseason was the 28. It was the average start when they were dropping it in down inside the 10-yard line and having a guy catch it and bring it back. So he didn't really see much use in not kicking it into the end zone. But the big thing for me was this. The Packers' suggestion that they get rid of the tush push did not pass. It was not voted on because they didn't have the votes. But they had 16 votes. And Roger Goodell came out and basically said, I want this eliminated. He said, when we do have an injury, our doctors think that's going to be a catastrophic injury, and we need to get out in front of this or make some kind of alteration to the rules to protect our players. Because what they're afraid is going to happen is going to be a catastrophic neck or spinal or head injury, and that's something the league can't have. So they're trying to get out in front of it. I think between now and May, what they will do is rewrite the proposal, go back to the 2004 rule, or the rule the way it was prior to 2004.
Right.
2004 and prior, where you could not push or pull a ball carrier downfield, and tell the officials they're just going to have to officiate it because, long and the short of it is this. If Goodell doesn't want something and he's got at least half of the owners on his side anyway, he's just going to see what he's got to do to get 8 more votes.
You're right. And they technically the term is tabled it. They tabled it until they meet again in May, where you're exactly right, Ben. I think they'll rewrite the language a little bit so they can get rid of it. I thought the Packers were kind of barking up the wrong tree by going after this player safety part of it, because I didn't know that if there would be enough data yet, and there really hasn't been, although obviously they are terrified of what it could lead to.
Yeah.
But as we've talked about many times, I just don't like it. It looks like a rugby play.
Exactly. It doesn't look like a football play. And their doctors have said straight up, when we have an injury on this play, because of the position all the players are in, it's going to be a catastrophic injury.
Yeah,
and as a result, they're trying to get rid of that.
And I would echo Claude's right. Playing 3 games in 10 days, the league shouldn't be talking about player safety, and he's exactly right.
And a few years back, Goodell wanted to extend the season, and he didn't have the votes. He came up, I don't know, 3 votes short or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they tabled it until May. And lo and behold, in May, it passed.
Well, the rumor is, and I want to stress the word rumor, is that the powers that be would like to see the NFL go to a 20-game schedule and get rid of the preseason and end this with the Super Bowl on President's Day weekend, because so many people have Monday off, the day after Super Bowl Sunday in that case. And, I don't, it's the old saying that once we went to 17, it seemed like a matter of time before we were going to go to 18. And that does seem like a matter of time.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, Ian, you're correct. Powers that be, television, no doubt about it. They are the powers that be right now, and dictating all of that. So
I'm sure that the television channels want to do this, but by the same token, the NFL wants to do it because it enhances their package and they can ask more for it. They can charge more.
Do you guys, and Ben, you're obviously older, roughly my age, and than Ian, who's
I just look
still
better.
Spring chicken, and certainly you do. I guess the point I'm trying to make is going way, way, way back when Monday Night Football was a freaking holiday. Monday Night Football was like the greatest thing in the world, because
it was awesome.
It was the only game not on a Sunday.
Right.
And especially when you were at college and you'd come home for the holidays, you'd get together with your buddies for like 3 straight Monday nights somewhere and watch the games. It didn't even matter who was playing,
right.
And now it's just, but then the season ended back then too. Now the NFL is 365. And I mean, look, we are in the middle. We have one of the greatest Final Fours where you have all number 1 seeds. There's really not that many people talking about it. People are talking about what just happened at the owners' meetings. People are talking about Joe Milton getting traded for a 7th-round draft pick. I mean, the NFL is just pulling all the right switches,
all the right levers. Yeah,
levers. Thank you. Yes, they really are. Yeah.
Can I make one quick point before we move on?
Of course.
And the reason that the TV networks want this is, at the end of the year, when everybody publishes their 50 most watched programs on television, the NFL is 45 out of those 50. The NFL just dominates television regardless of when it is: Thursday night, Saturday afternoon, Sunday night. Like it just dominates television, and it pulls ratings. And that's why the TV networks want it. They don't care at all about player safety. They want to sell advertising. And that's really what it all comes down to, is the TV networks have a product that makes them a ton of money, and they want more of that product.
No, you're absolutely right. And there's nowhere else I can really go with it. I see Cliff's with us tonight, and I did want to mention that if it weren't for Cliff, I would not know what this means. As I wipe my finger across my nose, or under my nose, apparently that has now been banned, and I didn't know what it meant. But apparently, Cliff is in tune with the Bloods and the Crips or something.
Cliff can use Google.
Yes, that's also true.
You and I can't.
No, we cannot use Google. I did. I just threw a gang sign on the show. But apparently that's been banned, and they're really, really cracking down. This sounds like it was one of
this, and then you put your thumb down.
Yes.
At least that's what I read. I mean, I've never seen it or noticed it anyway.
And for those of you like us who had no idea what it means or meant, it refers to pointing out a snitch.
Yes.
And yes, I am definitely an OG. I am down. That is for sure. But the one of the things that I don't think anybody really talked about a lot coming out of the owners meeting this week, there is another big move to crack down on any of those types of things. And the sexual stuff that we saw, I think it was who's the receiver for the Lions that was basically
Jameson Williams.
Yes, Jameson Williams, air pumping the end zone corner there.
2 pumps, man. Only 2 pumps. That's all you get.
That's right. Remember that? Yeah, get ready to hear more of that. Yes, Dom, when I'm throwing gang signs, you know it's a big night here on the SCB pod, man. Let me tell you right now. Hey, Joe, welcome into the show. One other thing real quick, and I thought Mr. Scarpino, I believe it was he that tweeted this, and so he's not here to correct me, but if Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with the Steelers, why hasn't he done it already?
I mean, I think we've all tweeted that in some form or fashion.
Probably. But I keep coming back to it. I mean, the offer's not going to change, is it?
Nope. It's a 1-year offer. It's a 1-year offer. Take it or leave it. I just don't. I don't think he knows if he wants to play for the Steelers, and that to me says, well, you just shouldn't be a Steeler.
Yeah, I agree. And Cliff has been talking all week about apparently Pat McAfee show is going to be in Pittsburgh. Are they at Stage AE?
I thought they were at
they're
the
at
Penguins stand, PPG.
Yeah.
Okay.
PPG
All right.
Paints.
I wasn't sure. But
yeah,
he's
it's
doing
like
a thing.
Big thing. I mean, that
it's
place
sold
seats
out,
like 18,000 people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sold out. I
appreciate McAfee. I appreciate the enthusiasm he brings to what he does and stuff. I'm not a big fan. I don't watch his stuff, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate and have respect for what he does. But the theory is that Rodgers is going to show up there and then he'll announce that he's going to sign with the Steelers, which would be the most Aaron Rodgers thing ever, right?
Yeah, but it'll be even funnier if that comes and goes and Aaron doesn't even show up.
Would it be funnier if he doesn't show up, or if he said, you know what, I think I'm just going to retire?
Well, that'd be funny. No, that would I would be like, yeah, you guys are dumb.
Yep. I have
honestly,
along.
I think what they're doing right now is stupid anyway. What their entire approach to the quarterback position from January has been stupid. And they clearly are putting all their eggs into the 2026 basket.
Yes.
Maybe that's a good thing. We'll see long term, right?
Well, and Khan basically admitted that the other day. He didn't come out and say we're all about 2026. I don't mean to say that. But he alluded to the fact that, look, we've stockpiled some comp picks. We're looking to do this and that. And so, yeah, I mean, and he even complimented the beat writers. He said, hey, you guys aren't dumb. You're smart people. You know what we're doing here. And to me, that was pretty telling that, yeah, they're looking at 26 and just hoping to get by with a competitive team in 25. And I don't know. Are we ready to talk a little bit of draft?
Yeah.
I think so.
Barely.
We're going to focus. Did you say barely?
Barely, but I will. Yeah.
Ben, do you have like an
100%.
emergency? Is there an emergency number in case you like pass out and fall out of the screen that you need to call? Or okay, all right,
nothing like that.
Is Tucker running around with one of those things a Saint Bernard wears? Finding people in the snow.
Oop.
Ben is so out of it. He's not even funny tonight.
Laying on his bed looking at me.
Oh, good boy. Let's start with defensive line. And I want to start there strictly because it's the most popular position for the Steelers when you look at mock drafts, when you look at just overall people talking about the Steelers and where they might go. Okay. Mason Graham in Michigan, I don't really think we should waste time because he's not going to be there. Is that fair?
Probably not.
Yeah. I think the two Michigan guys I think are the top two in the class, probably. Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, his best is better than everybody else's best, but he like disappears at times too. And he did it at the Senior Bowl too. Like some reps he was just on and there, and then other times he just like was disappeared for like a whole session. And it was like he just looked like another guy. So like I feel like there's and he didn't work out at his pro day. There's too many red flags with Nolan that I wouldn't touch him in the first round. Somebody probably will, but I think the safest two defensive tackle prospects in this class are the two guys from Michigan.
Grant is interesting to me because I see him all over the first round. And then I listen to some of the top people and they're kind of like, don't be surprised if he slips to the tail end of the first round, just because teams are going to have opportunities to draft guys from other positions and so on. I mean, look, the dude is 6'3", 340 pounds, and he moves incredibly well for a man that size. And I mean, how does a guy like that fit in what the Steelers do? And I loved Mike Tomlin the other day saying flat out what we've been saying. It's not private knowledge, but 80% of the time they are in special package defenses away from their base. So how does a guy like Grant at 340, 6'3", how do we validate taking him in the first round?
When you can move like he does, you can play that hybrid kind of 3-4, 4-3, or you know what I mean? 3-4, and then nickel's essentially a 2-4-5. So sliding inside, it's more like a 4-3 defensive tackle when you're in nickel. So, but he's scheme versatile with his athleticism.
Ben, you agree with that, or do you see it? Yeah,
he can effectively play anything between a 0 tech and a 5 tech would be the way I would put it. You could put him there anywhere along the line, and he's going to be good. He can be a true two-gapping nose tackle, which is something this defense hasn't had in years.
No. Speaking of two-gapping, the kid that has really come on is a kid from Ohio State. And shameless plug here is that Cliff put out his draft profile earlier today. Tyleik Williams. His tape is fun to watch. And I don't say that very often about defensive linemen, but you want to watch a guy process and get to a ball carrier or get pressure on a quarterback. I like watching him. Now, I don't think he's a first rounder, but he's going to be very, very interesting. And I see Vinny just put that right there as well. Ian, have you had a chance to watch him at all?
Yeah, I like Tyleik Williams a lot. I think you're right. I think he probably goes top half of the second round, though. So I'm thinking he's probably in the top 50 kind of range. What I was actually chatting with Cliff about him earlier today. The one sort of minor knock on Tyleik Williams is his arm length isn't as long as some of the other guys, which gets him kind of into the chest of linemen more. But his functional play strength, when you watch him play, he just throws guys to the side. Like, it doesn't matter that he doesn't hold them off. He just bullies his way. Like, he has really strong arms and really heavy hands that just, like, when he hits somebody, they move. And you're right. It's a fun tape to watch. And I think to Ben's point about defensive linemen who can two gap, that gives you a really big advantage when you're sliding from their base 3-4 scheme, where under Terrell Austin, they've done a lot more one gapping. And now, but when you're in that nickel set and you only have two down linemen, you kind of have to two gap, especially against the run. So having guys who can do that, and there are a few guys in this class too. I think Williams is the best at it, but Collins from Texas is a pretty good run defender, but he does not get upfield very well to do much against the pass. I see him more as like a round 3-4 kind of guy, that if you don't get one in the early rounds, Collins, Josh Farmer from Florida State, both of those guys are like okay consolation prizes in the mid rounds of the draft. The guy who has really good burst is Sanders from South Carolina. I mean, he gets up the field in a hurry. He's a little bit, I'll say, quote unquote, undersized for what you typically see, but like he's still 290. And I mean, I think Aaron Donald was playing at like 280, 275, somewhere in there. And
short,
those guys that can get up the field quick can just wreak havoc. So I'm not gonna completely write off a guy because he doesn't have the bulk that a traditional lineman has.
Ben, do you see us, and I know I'm asking you a difficult question here because you don't know, but do you see us double dipping defensive tackle here this draft?
Oh, I think it's entirely possible. I mean, last year they took 3 offensive linemen.
True.
And it seems to be the priority for this front office to develop the lines. And, that could be an Andy Weidel thing. I don't know. But taking 3, I don't think they'll take an offensive lineman this year, which surprises me a little. Unless there's just somebody there who's just too good to pass on.
Right.
I don't think they're going to do that, but I wouldn't be shocked if they double dipped at a position where they typically only have 2 guys on the field.
Mm-hmm.
It won't shock me at all because they got rid of Larry O. They've got Benton and they've got Cam, but Cam's 36.
Right.
Right. Coming toward the end. It's time to restock the shelves, if you will. And I won't shock you at all.
I'm with you.
I wouldn't be surprised if they went defensive line first round and third round.
No, it wouldn't be. And I really think that the fact that we lost that second rounder, and I say lost, we traded it to Seattle, part of the DK Metcalf trade. It makes am I wrong in thinking this, but it makes that third round pick just a lot more valuable this year? Does that
it's their second pick, so I get what you're saying. Does it make it more valuable? No, and
it just feels that way for some reason. I don't know.
I still think they're going to find a way to get a second round pick.
I do too, and that's another thing that Omar Khan said. They are he did not hide that this week. No. He said we'd like to recover that second round pick.
Yeah, I think he's going to find a way to do it, and my feeling is it'll involve a trade of George Pickens, but maybe Pickens will get traded later. I don't know. It certainly would benefit the team more to trade him before or during this draft.
For sure.
With picks they can use, with a pick or picks they can use this year, then it would benefit them to wait and get the pick next year. Like we talked about before, if Pickens leaves, you're probably going to get a third round pick for him, compensatory pick. But you're not going to get it until 2027.
Right.
That doesn't do you a lot of good when it's 2 years from now. So, you're better off, given how many needs you have, going ahead and letting him, because you're going to let him walk next year anyway. Get what you can for him.
No, I agree. And I anticipate we'll talk a little bit more about that next week when we cover the offense, because then wide receiver comes into play, obviously, if there is a trade that sends Pickens. Geez, there it is. I said Pickett on the show. We've kept our streak going. One guy that I find intriguing, and last comment on defensive tackles here, Jordan Phillips from Maryland. He's pretty raw, but my God, the dude is impressive. He would need probably a redshirt year, to be very honest with you. But depending on where they could take him, he's about 6'3", 320. Very, very athletic, very capable, but just doesn't have a lot of game experience yet. And so if they're going to double up, I can see a guy like that. Ian, you wanted to throw out a couple other names here.
Yeah, just a few more names. Derek Harmon from Oregon's another guy to keep an eye on. He may sneak into the first round. He may even be well gone before.
I like him a lot.
That dude looks like a Steeler.
Yeah,
or a Ratbird.
I
think if the Steelers don't take him, he's gonna play in Baltimore for 10 years and fucking make our lives miserable.
Seems like
what's hilarious about that comment from Ben is I actually just had his prospect page on NFL.com up that Lance Zierlein does a really nice job on these. And he has this sources tell us section. And for Derek Harmon, it says, quote, "He plays like a Raven or a Steeler. Off the tape, he reminds me of a young Cam Hayward, but bigger, from an NFC executive." So Ben and some random NFC executive are on the same page with this.
Yeah. I would not be disappointed with him at 21 at all.
I don't like Oregon defensive players as a rule, but that kid.
Very interesting you say that. I think there's a lot of people that feel that way.
They don't place much emphasis historically. They haven't placed much emphasis on good defenses. They play with little guys that are quick.
Yes. Well, is that changing now because they're in the Big Ten? I wonder.
Oh, maybe, but I mean that was their first year in the Big Ten.
Right, and they obviously had a great year. They won the Big Ten title. But it's just, I know we have some kids in our area here in Michigan that have actually been recruited pretty heavily by USC, UCLA, which you didn't used to see happen. And these are your bigger, stronger, bulkier kids that are happening to go out that way. And so I think that's kind of those schools saying, hey, if we're going to compete in the Big Ten, but then again, like you said, Oregon typically plays a little smaller defensively, and now it caught up with them in the Rose Bowl. But as far as the regular season, they did fine. Let me see
a few other names here, just real quick.
Yep.
Peyton Page from Clemson. They had dinner with him before his pro day amongst some other Clemson guys. He's probably a mid-rounder at best. Vernon Broughton from Texas, same thing. They had dinner with him before his pro day, mid-rounder at best. They have pre-draft visits set up or already happened. I don't remember. I just have visit written down with Yaha Black from Iowa and JJ Pegas from Ole Miss. Both of those guys are also mid-round guys. So they've done some work here on this defensive tackle class, in addition to meeting with a bunch of them at the Senior Bowl, Shrine Game, combine meetings, all that stuff. But as far as guys they have dinner with, guys they bring in for pre-draft visits, it's noteworthy to at least throw out their names.
And just on top of that, Ian, and I don't have it in front of me. I know Alan Saunders tweeted this, and a few other people did as well. We talk about this all the time, where the things you look for a Steelers draft pick are, did they meet with them at the combine? Did they come in for a personal visit, pro day, so on? And I think it was the receiver, was it Golden from Texas? He became
he was
fifth
just
or sixth guy to achieve the quintuple crown, if you will, whatever it is.
Golden's not going to be there at 21.
No, I don't think so either. But my point is this: they were not the ones they've had reach that point. None of them are first rounders, with the exception of him. I thought it was kind of interesting. The rest of them were all kind of like just second, third, fourth, fifth round.
Yeah, it's kind of a top heavy class. I don't think it's a deep class, but I think it's a quality class. Does that make sense? There are a bunch of guys in the middle rounds that are going to be players and going to be good players.
It's like
maybe not great, but good.
In the middle, thick in the middle. Yeah.
But, it's not a real top heavy class. I mean, sometimes you have classes where there are 4 or 5 guys at wide receiver that, that are going to get yanked in the first round. And it's like, oh, wow, this class is, whoa.
Right.
When I think that lends some credence to the idea of George Pickens becomes tradable, because you get to the point where this isn't a top heavy class. I've seen multiple people say and it's like this every year, but this year seems almost worse, that there's 15 or 18 first round grades in this class, but a lot of guys who are going to be very solid players in the middle of the class, picks between 50 and 100, you're going to get some good players in there in the second and third rounds. But just you're going to get guys taken in the first round who in another class would be a mid-second round pick.
Yeah, no, very good points. Very good. We'll talk about edge rushers, defensive ends, edge rushers. I mean,
so Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there used to be a time when you could pretty much bank on the Steelers taking an edge rusher almost every single draft. I don't know that that's quite accurate as it used to be, but there's obviously some talented guys here.
Yeah, they could get those tweeners that other teams didn't want, because they were the only team that played a 34.
Yep.
And it's not the case anymore.
Not anymore.
And teams have also adopted those tweeners to their defenses by just letting them rush the quarterback, which maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but
I mean, obviously Abdul Carter's going to be a top 3 pick. He's sensational.
That guy's he's outstanding.
He is. I mean, to be 6'3", 260 pounds and run a 4.48. I mean, come on.
But his agility drills were very good too. The guy, he's a monster. He really is. And really, your agility drills in those in the short area for edge rushers, I think they're more important than
no doubt about it.
Than the long speed. I mean, that guy's not going to be asked to cover wide receivers,
As good as he was in all those drills, it makes you appreciate what TJ Watt did, because even Watt's numbers and the agility stuff were just slightly better than his. Just again,
Just a hair better.
Right? Oh yeah, I'm not saying by much, but just makes you appreciate how good Watt was.
It also makes you appreciate how much the Cowboys did us a favor by taking Taco Charlton because that was one of the dumbest things. I mean, when the guy behind you ends up being behind your pick ends up being defensive player of the year, and your guy flames out and ends up on practice squads, you screwed up.
Yeah. I think there's some guys down the line here. Ian, did you take a look at the edge guys at all?
I did. Yes. So the one thing I want to mention with this class
going to win of edge rushers
is all right. I just threw it in the chat that Taco Charlton is the Spurgeon win of edge rushers. And for those that don't know, for the youngins listening to the show, who weren't around for the 2000 NFL draft, Spurgeon Wynn was a quarterback taken by the Cleveland Browns in the middle of the 6th round. And the next quarterback taken off the board was a guy named Tom Brady. So, the Spurgeon Wynn went down in history as, the last quarterback taken before Tom Brady. And it was just epic that he went to the Browns.
The Browns. Yes.
Yes.
Hey, yes. Same draft, same year. Who did the Steelers take in the 5th round at quarterback?
T. Martin.
T. Martin out of Tennessee.
National champion quarterback from Tennessee, which Peyton Manning did not do.
That's true. I'll say this for T.
Shout out to Melvin and Cliff and my other Tennessee fans in the chat.
That's right. T.
Yeah,
Martin.
But I mean, I'm just saying, I think that every single team in the league screwed up by passing on Brady
numerous times.
Yeah.
But if you took a quarterback in that class and he wasn't Brady, you really fucked up. And nobody saw that. And if you look at Brady's measurables at the combine and the picture of him standing there in boxers, it was just like, really? This is your quarter?
I know.
Okay. All right. Now I wouldn't have thought that he was going to be a player either. I just would have been
he just
this kid's he started at 2 years at Michigan. Really?
Well, shoot, he split time with Drew Henson.
Well, the thing you can't measure with players is what's between the ears and what their desire is, and that's the great athletes, especially at the top level, are all ones that not only are incredibly smart and have it between the ears, but just have that relentless desire to be great. And Antonio Brown was a 6th-round pick, great example that he as dumb as he is on Twitter, he understood the game of football and how to play it and knew what to do and how to get open and was a relentless worker and
knew how to work.
Yeah. No denying it.
Yeah.
I mean, Tomlin still talks about rushers.
Yeah.
Back
to edge rushers. So the one thing I want to say with this edge rusher class is there's a lot of tweener hybrid guys that played both inside and outside. So when I started to look at these guys, guys like Walker from Georgia, Williams from Georgia, Campbell from Alabama, both had inside and outside experience and snaps. So it's kind of hard to project Jahad Campbell from Alabama. Okay, is he an inside backer or an outside backer? Personally, I think he fits better as an inside backer, but some team could use him, or a 4-3 team could plug him in as a strong side 4-3 backer or something like that. So it's Walker from Georgia is going to be a 1st-round pick. I think Green from Marshall, a guy I would not touch. His tape looks good. He has a lot of effort, and he was a freak athlete, but he's got some big off-field red flags. I'm just he might be a player, but I'm not touching that guy. The flip side of that, though, is Sawyer from Ohio State, who's just like a pure effort guy, like leadership praised off the charts. Like, I don't really know how much athleticism he has compared to some of the other top guys, but like his football IQ is so high. And, the plays that he made in the playoffs and the national championship game, like, that's a guy that you're like, I can win with this guy.
Yes.
Right? Like,
that's what I was going to say too. Yeah.
And one of the guys I really like is Jackson from Arkansas. He's got size, length, strength, and he's got all of it together. He's a pretty impressive kid that's probably going to go on day 2 somewhere. But like, if you're looking for a diamond in the rough, I think he could be one of the sleepers in this class.
He reminds me a little bit of and by no means am I comparing him to, but I'll use the name Aaron Smith. He tall, long, that typical 3-4 defensive end type, but again, when you're in specialty packages so often, that's pretty much an edge rusher now. I'm not saying he couldn't be that, because I think he probably could, but Sawyer, Sawyer is your classic, like you said, guy you can win with. I like that. The kid across from him, and I'm gonna butcher his name, Tumalo. From Ohio State, JT. Man, he had some games where he just absolutely took over and had some ability there. So I think there's a possibility the Steelers could grab one of these guys late, but at the same time, you just don't know. I mean, obviously they're happy with Watt, with Highsmith, and Nick Herbig.
Right.
And did we ever bring in a fourth guy?
We re-signed Jeremiah Moon.
That's
the exclusive rights free agent.
Yeah,
I think.
That's right. And again, he's serviceable.
Because we were joking on Slack that we should plan the parade because they re-signed him.
Correct. Yes, parade coming up. Would you guys touch James Pierce out of Tennessee?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
How late?
In what round? Yeah, round 3. Yes. Round 1, no.
There's talk that the talent there could be round 1, but there's some flags also. Yeah, and that's I can just see him drifting downward and being like, and like, no, don't do it.
Who was the kid? Who was the kid from Nebraska? Oh, it was a while ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, who like was the same thing. His talent was off the charts, but he had these red flags and he dropped to like the 2nd or 3rd round. I think the Cowboys took him and he was like really good when he played, but was hurt all the time. I don't remember his name.
Shit. I'm drawing a blank.
He was a pass rusher from Nebraska. That's all I remember.
Okay.
But, yeah. I know the Cowboys.
I can see. He wore number 4.
Yeah,
I think at one point. I can see who you're talking about, and I can't. Somebody in the chat will know. I guarantee it. Scarps, hey freak, Scarps is not at AA again. He and his lovely bride are in the throes of expectation of their 2nd child. We don't yet know if that's going to happen tonight or not, but they are, I believe, to use his term, singularly focused on this child this evening, and we will let everybody know as soon as we do on Scarp's baby number 2. So that's where he is tonight.
Randy Gregory.
He's trying. Randy Gregory.
Yeah.
Scarps.
Yes.
Scarps is trying not to be drunk when he's driving to the hospital this time.
Yes, yes.
I respect him for that choice.
As do I, seeing as he violated that choice with the first child. But I'm sure many of us would be. Linebacker, off-ball linebacker here.
Thanks, Aaron. You're late.
Look, there's some talent here. I don't think this is a great linebacker class compared to some other ones. I mean, you talked a little bit about Jihad Campbell, if that's where he ends up. Obviously, Walker from Georgia is probably the top linebacker there. But other than that, the class doesn't really do a whole lot for me.
Who actually stood out to me was Schweisinger from UCLA. He just he got injured during the season and just did a late pro day and ran a sub 7 3 cone. And I was like, ooh, so I'm like, ooh, I'm going to go back and watch this guy. And some of his tape of being able to UCLA ran a lot of cover 2, and he was like the middle linebacker that had to carry down the middle, like
Yes.
carry the tight end. He had the speed to like carry tight ends down the middle of the field. So that kind of stood out to me. I was like, this kid running a sub 7.3 cone and having that kind of agility at a linebacker spot, there's something there. It's like a day 2 pick, I think. Not for the Steelers. The Steelers probably aren't in the market for this,
right?
But I think he could be a player. There seem like a lot of guys in this inside linebacker class to me who I'm like, these are immediate special teams players, but like maybe rotational linebackers, like Stutzman from Oklahoma, Simon from Ohio State, Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame, who is like a 6th-year senior. And that dude, like, if you want leadership and like guys you win with, like, Notre Dame,
there's a lot of those guys in this
William
draft.
Campbell Award finalists, like there's a lot of those kind of guys in this linebacker class, but just not a lot of top end. Like, there's not a Nick Bolton in this class, or there's not there's not a Fred Warner in this class. And I realize like Bolton and Warner were day 2 picks, so I feel like the NFL really struggles with sort of pre-draft analysis of inside linebacker talent, because the guys that wind up getting taken pretty high, other than who
are you thinking of?
The guy from Carolina who was there forever, who just retired.
Keekly?
He's thinking of Devin Bush.
No, other than thanks. Sorry, I've had some drinks. Other than Luke Kuechly, who was just like amazing as a top 10 pick, right? Like a lot of other inside linebackers who get picked in the first round, like Patrick Queen was a first round pick but didn't get re-signed, and some other guys, Roquan Smith wound up being really good, but like Devin White
looked like he was going to be a monster the first few
years
boy,
he
career,
sure
and then he just
didn't he?
Yep. Yeah. Devin Bush.
Devin Bush was not good.
No.
Is he back with Cleveland again?
I don't know.
I think he is.
1-year deal.
But then you get guys like Fred Warner, who was a 3rd round pick, and Nick Bolton, I think, was a 2nd. So
it's like you said, though, Ian, there's something to be said for what's between the ears, and also desire, effort.
Yeah. The knock on Warner coming out was that he was a fast guy who could run, but that he couldn't stack and shed. Well, he can do everything.
Yeah.
They were wrong.
Okay, so Freak has a segue question here, and we'll get back to the draft stuff in a second. He says, do you agree that even with luck, the Steelers won't be Super Bowl competitive until 2027? His logic being no rookie quarterback has won a ring, so the QB picked this year, next year would need time to develop. Look, it's a great question.
Probably.
You can't ignore the fact that a rookie has not won the Super Bowl. Can't ignore that fact. But I think, as we've pointed out on this program numerous times, you also can't avoid the fact that this roster is not really that great right now.
No, it's not.
And I don't care who you put in there at quarterback right now. I don't think you're going to get very far. That's just my feeling. This draft has to.
I agree, and that's one of the reasons I don't want to sign. I don't want them to sign Aaron Rodgers. It's like, why would you pay this guy $25 or $30 million a year to win one extra game over what Mason Rudolph can do? And that's what I think we're talking about. 1 or 2 games, maybe.
I do too.
I still see the talent when he was running those drills with Metcalf and the film that went out on the web. But I also looked at his footwork, and it was slow and it was a little sloppy. But he still got that arm. But I mean, Favre had the big arm at the end of his career, and he still wasn't very effective. So, at the end of the day, you got to be able to be effective and lead a team. And I'm not convinced at 42 years old that he can do that. So I see it as a waste of money. I mean, Dave Damashek pointed this out. And
I was just going to bring that up. Go for it.
A number of people have. In Rodgers' last 25 games, he's turned it over 34 times.
Yeah.
That's bad.
It's not good.
He's 40. He's 41, going to be 42. He's not going to improve.
No. I don't think so either. I want to believe as much as possible that this is not just a bromance between Tomlin and Rodgers, but I'm afraid that some of
I
it
think it
has to
is,
do with
man.
that. I think it is too, and it irritates the shit out of me.
And Tomlin, I'm sure, sees it as a 1-year deal, and that's fine because it is. But it's really, I agree with you. It's irritating. It really is. It's like, dude, really?
Yeah,
You're just you want to do this because you think it'll be cool,
right? Exactly. And
I get that Tomlin loves him some football, and he wants to bring guys in that give him a chance. I get all of that, but what is it really? Is it really worth it? I don't
think so either. Let's move over to defensive backs, because this is an area where I think the Steelers will most definitely be sniffing around in this particular draft. I don't think it'll happen in the first round, but I can see it pretty much happening on day 2 or day 3, perhaps both. Look, Travis Hunter, we don't even know if he's going to be a receiver or a defensive back, but we're not going to get him. He's going to be long gone. Okay. I think Will Johnson at Michigan probably going to be gone. And then you get into some of these really interesting cornerbacks and stuff. And I am reminded of the fact that we did sign Nichols in free agency, who seems, I guess, destined to be available at both boundary and slot. Beanie Bishop, I thought, had a very nice rookie season for a free agent rookie. But again, we don't know what the Steelers are thinking. So, Ian, who are some corners that have stood out to you so far?
Yeah, I think at the top of this cornerback class, you have a real divide between guys who are pretty good in man and guys who are pretty good in zone, but not a lot of guys who are versatile in both. So I'd put, Johnson from Michigan. I'd put Ravel from East Carolina, Porter from Iowa State as the really good press man corners. And I mean, Porter from Iowa State was athleticism's off the charts. I mean,
he's Steeler. He just looks like a Steeler.
6'3", 4'3" speed. I mean, his awareness to go get the ball, that dude can play, and I would take him any day. Now the problem is, Terrell Austin likes to play zone, not man. So you bring those guys in who are, the big long striders that can run down the field, and you put them in a zone scheme, they may not work out as well. So the zone scheme guys that I saw more were Morrison from Notre Dame, who's kind of a corner safety hybrid.
Yep.
Hairston from Kentucky, Alexander from LSU, maybe Thomas from Florida State. Thomas, honestly, Ezra Thomas from Florida State reminds me a lot of Joey Porter Jr. It's like you watch him play and you look at all his measurables and you're like, oh, length and physicality, but handsy and really bad technique, and he just grabs all over the field. And I'm like, oh, we already have this guy. So I don't hate him as a prospect, but I'm like, we already have a corner who does this. The other guy I'll mention is Barron from Texas, who actually I think does have some versatility to play either scheme. He's, in comparison to Porter from Iowa State, who's, pushing 6'3", Barron's like barely 5'11", so giving up a little bit of size, but I think he has that versatility to play either inside or outside, or play zone or man, and has some really impressive ball skills. They also had dinner with him before his pro day, so that's a name to watch. The other guy that stood out to me too is Amos from Ole Miss. He started his career at Alabama. He's a physical and pretty athletic corner, but those are the guys I've got my eye on at cornerback.
Ben, the Barron kid, for example, at Texas, as Ian pointed out, he's 5'11", 200 pounds. Would you take him at 21? Because he's not gonna be there in the third round. You know that. Now here's a guy that's on mute.
No.
Okay.
I would not take him. And so you're not getting him. You're right. He's not going to be there in the second round.
Right.
Because we don't have a second round pick. He's not going to be there in the third round when the Steelers do have a pick. And they've made it pretty clear what they're going to do in the first round, I think, and it's going to be defensive tackle. But there is the outside possibility that they'll take a wide receiver there if somebody they really like falls. That's what I keep wondering. It's like, is the smart move here to stay at 21 and take a defensive tackle, or trade back and take a pretty good defensive tackle and pick up some more draft capital, if you will, more picks? I don't expect them to be able to move back from 21 to the end of the first round and pick up another second round pick unless somebody's really desperate to take Jackson Dart. That would be funny. That would be hilarious. If somebody wanted to trade the Steelers their first and second round picks for pick 21, I will laugh my ass off. Yes, they should take that.
I am always a fan of trading down if you can, and obviously it takes two to tango. But I do like the idea of it, especially without the second round pick, and because of the depth of the defensive tackle class. And we'll get more into this next week, but there is this little uptick in thought that maybe the Steelers are also thinking running back too in round one, which you'd think we learned our lesson a little bit. But
besides Jonty, like, who would they take in the first round?
Well, Omarion Hampton is getting quite a bit of buzz, and I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that's the name.
Too, but
that's the name. I think you're much better off waiting, getting a kid like Neal from Kansas, maybe Johnson from Iowa, something like that in the later rounds. Than
I like
Yale
Johnson.
There's a lot of
or Henderson from Ohio State.
Yes, any of those. Yes, and like I said, we'll talk more offense next week. But Ian, you laid out the DBs pretty well, and the other thing to keep in mind too, as you've written for the site steelcityblitz.com, DBs for us, cornerbacks, much better off when we get free agents than when we draft them. And the other key thing to remember is that in the first round, the Steelers love guys from the Power Four. They love guys from teams that finished in the top 25. They love guys that are winners. So just based on that, look at that list of guys in that top 10, top 15 of cornerbacks. And, like Siobhan Revel of East Carolina, man, really intriguing guy, great player, but probably not going to be a Steeler in the first round. No doubt about it. Based on those parameters. So
there are going to be a lot of good players left at 21.
Oh yeah.
And you can't take them all. And so you take, I'm not telling you anything you don't know here. You take the best player available, I think, because they've got holes at so many positions that they could take almost anything and improve themselves. I don't see them taking a linebacker or an edge.
Nope.
But beyond that, I think anything is fair game. I really do. I truly do.
Don't dismiss the kid out of LSU either. Zy Alexander, about 6'2", and covers big guys pretty well, which obviously we're going to be dealing with in our division quite often. So, maybe a day 2, day 3 thing there.
He's got some injury history, so I really didn't know where to put him because I was kind of like, it kind of depends how his medicals work out. But that's one of those things that we as fans can never know, right? We never know what the medicals come in as. And
very true.
A guy like, who was it? Nakobe Dean from Georgia, the inside linebacker, who I absolutely loved. I thought he was one of the top players in the class. Fell to the third round, and the Eagles took him, and now he's tearing it up with the Eagles. But people were like, "Oh, there's medical questions with him," and I'm like, "Okay, he's a good player on tape, and he's been a good player in the league." But
and there were medical questions about Peyton Wilson too, and he had a really nice rookie season. But you just don't know,
right? And the flip side is sometimes you get guys who have medical questions and it just doesn't work out too. So it's a gamble that you take.
What did you guys make of the fact that our defensive backs coach, Gerald Alexander, he went to the South Carolina Pro Day and he spent about 30 minutes with Nick Emenworry, the safety, just one-on-one. Okay. One-on-one. That's all they were doing, working on different stuff, talking about different things. I mean, I don't see us needing a safety in the first round. So
Not the first, but they
no,
can
but I
take
mean,
safety.
I think most the consensus has this guy going in the first round. So
Yeah.
why would we spend so much time with him?
He's a hybrid. He's Nick Emenwari, and that's why I did the quotes, right? He reminds me a lot of kind of the Justin Simmons recently, who didn't work out, but Buda Baker before that, who did, as kind of that safety linebacker hybrid, right? Like, he's a safety who's built like a linebacker,
Yeah.
but can run like a safety, but hit like a linebacker. So he's a guy who, when I started looking at him, I was like, where's he going to play? Like, is somebody going to put him at safety, or at strong safety, really? Or is somebody going to put him as like kind of that Buda Baker dime backer kind of role and just let him rove in a nickel or a dime defense and be pretty darn effective? I mean, the kid's a really good player. He's a first round pick. I don't think we're going to take him, but to me, that's the kind of guy who probably goes in that 15 to 20 range.
Yeah.
So if you're going to trade back, you want to know what you're passing on, right? If somebody moves up to get him, you're like, what are we passing on to trade back? The other thing is the Steelers have really good relationships with a lot of schools. Clemson is one of them. I know he went to South Carolina, but Steelers and their assistant coaches have really good relationships with a lot of schools. I mean, Dunbar coming from Alabama, Dunbar will go back to Alabama and run like defensive line drills at their pro day and stuff. So the Steelers just having those relationships, like sometimes those schools are like, hey, we need someone to come run a drill for us at our pro day. Will your coach come do it? So sometimes that's all it is. But also, I do think they put some time in on this kid because he's a really good player. But I'm still trying to figure out where he plays at the NFL.
Right.
And there's some other guys in this safety class. Actually, I really like the depth of this safety class. I think there's some really good players to be had on day 2 here, but I'll let Ben talk for a minute and then I'll run through my list of guys.
I think the Steelers tend to do due diligence on a lot of players they know they're not going to be able to get because later on in their career, they want to have some familiarity with them when they become free agents.
Bingo.
And this is probably exactly that. They don't think they're going to be able to get him.
Right.
But they want to be familiar. And they didn't. Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin didn't go out and see him.
No.
A position coach did. And so, you know.
The comparison I would make, not as players, but as situations, is Minkah Fitzpatrick. We spent a lot of time looking at Minkah Fitzpatrick, even though we basically knew we weren't going to be able to draft him. Well, what do you got? 2 years later, you make the trade for him and you spend the first round draft pick on him. There you go. I mean, who's to say the same thing couldn't happen with this kid 2 years from
less
now?
than 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're exactly right, Ben, that's what they're doing. I don't think this was as much about this draft as it was getting to know this kid. What are some things you can do?
Yeah.
And you never know. Maybe things won't work out with the team that drafts you, and boom, here you go. But yeah, Ian, to your point, this is a really deep safety draft. There's a lot of guys that will immediately plug in as special teamers and third safeties. And Joe pointed out Steelers use a lot of that 3 safety stuff. So, you know, maybe that's a possibility too there. But, you know, after Emenwari starts at Georgia, Watts at Notre Dame, Makuba
really
at
like
Texas
Watts.
is getting a lot of these guys are getting a lot of attention. Even the Castro kid from Iowa. You know, I just Winston from Penn State also. I mean, there's a lot of really neat. The kid I stumbled on this week, Dante Trader from Maryland, came in as a lacrosse player, one of the top lacrosse players in the country. And I don't know about you guys. I love lacrosse players that turn into NFL players strictly because they usually torch the Steelers.
Kevin Hogan reference. Wow.
I couldn't resist. No, but I like him a lot. You know, there's a lot of nice safeties in this, and I again, you know, fans get caught up with a lot of things. We were pretty rough on Mink all year, and rightfully so in many ways, and that's led many people to think, maybe we trade him.
He deserved
safety
it.
becomes, he frankly did. You get paid that much money, you're expected to make plays. So. Any other safety?
They changed up the way the defensive backfield played in order to let him freelance some more, because he did that the year before and it was very good. Or I'm sorry, 2 years before.
Right.
The year before they had him playing strong safety. So it was disappointing. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Ian.
Yeah. So my list on safeties. I feel like kind of like with corners where I said there were zone guys and there were man guys.
Yeah.
There's definitely guys who are better kind of strong safety, downhill, attack the ball, and sort of your free safety center fielder types. Imanwari is that hybrid of linebacker safety. Starks from Georgia, who you mentioned, is versatile. He can cover the slot or play too deep. It kind of reminds me of Minka a little bit, because Minka coming out played both in the slot and kind of that deep safety role. Cliff wrote a really good profile on Kevin Winston from Penn State, so I don't want to steal Cliff's thunder. So I'll just say go to steelcityblitz.com and read the profile on Winston. He's coming off an ACL injury, but he was an excellent tackler. And like the ACL surgeries they're doing now, like 6 months removed from tearing his ACL, he went out and like ran at his pro day and stuff, which is crazy. It used to be a year, and now it's like 6 months. It's just crazy. I mentioned Watts from Notre Dame, a guy who I really like. You watch him and he's just a smart, instinctive player who's just always around the ball, who can do a lot of good things. He's probably more of a downhill strong safety type, but I like him a lot. Moore from Alabama is more of the center fielder, rangy type. He had 7 picks last year, but that dude's a head case. Like, he commits penalties. He's talking to people. I would not touch him with a 10-foot
He's the George Pickens of defense, is what
he's the George Pickens of defense, pretty much. Yeah. A guy who's picked up some steam lately after the combine is Bowman from Oklahoma.
Yes.
He's got some pretty good ball skills, had 3 pick sixes in his career. He lacks a little bit of size, but he can go find the ball. It's a mid-round pick. I wouldn't hate it. They had dinner with Makuba from Texas before his pro day. He's got some ball skills. I think he's a little bit more too of that true free safety type with the rangy and the ball skills. The folks in the chat kind of stole my thunder with Ransom from Ohio State, who's more of a strong safety coming downhill, very, very physical and disruptive, but not as good on those, defending the vertical routes coming down the field. But if you're looking for a strong safety, Ransom in the mid rounds is a pretty good pick. And then the other guy from Penn State, also Reed, as a true strong safety, I think is pretty good too. So there's a lot of depth to be had here, and probably like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds at safety. But it's kind of like pick what you want, right? You're not going to get that guy who can do both. You're either going to get a downhill guy who can attack against the run and play strong safety, or you're going to get that more rangy, not real good tackler, but good ball skills free safety.
Ben, did you have anything else on the DBs or
no,
anything in particular?
not really. They signed Juan Thornhill. I don't necessarily expect him to even draft a safety.
I don't either. I'm just trying to be prepared for anything. I did see that the Steelers did, as one of their 30 visits. Actually, I believe he was a local visit. They actually brought in the kicker from Penn State, I believe it was. I'm sorry, Pitt, because he had a great year.
Kick. Yeah.
Extremely accurate and kicked very well at Heinz Field. Obviously,
I don't see them drafting a kicker.
I don't either. Don't either. Just thought it was worth mentioning that they brought him in for a local visit. Chris Boswell someday will go off into the world of retirement. But in any case, so any other thoughts on defensive guys in the pick or on the draft?
The one other name I'll mention is Jason Marshall from Florida. Midget, who's the assistant defensive backs coach, went to his pro day. So probably a late round pick. Yes, I know our assistant DB's coach is named Midget. I don't make these up. It's what it is, right?
I thought Ian was just being a dick. You guys all,
No.
you guys all thought that too.
Hey, who brought the little guy?
All right. I'm just,
Sorry.
just looking at the
It
list.
was an opportunity to throw Ian under the bus. I couldn't
That's
resist.
fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Next week, we will flip over to the other side of the ball and talk offense. Obviously, it'll probably be pretty heavy on wide receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs. And, somebody mentioned that no center, no tight end will be drafted. I'll be honest. I wouldn't hate if we found an athletic tight end.
Neither
I
would
wouldn't hate it. I would not hate it.
I don't think it's outside the bounds of possibility either. One of our tight ends is little Cameron and little Hayward, and he's not a tight end, man. He's not
a tight end.
The dude is not a tight end, and so it wouldn't shock me at all if that. And Muth he's pretty good, but he ain't great.
No,
he's not.
If there's an athletic type tight end available and we took him, I wouldn't hate it.
And for some reason, a guy is there that they love, and he's just too good to pass up. Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. Like, again,
no, it wouldn't me either.
I keep going back and forth about this trading back business. Like, I don't see them trading up, but I also don't see them trading out of 21 if somebody they like is falling. You get down to 15, 16, and there's still one or two guys on the board that you really love. It's like, ooh, maybe we should just stay here, and maybe one of them will fall to us. And if they don't, we can trade out at 20.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think to that point, like most years where we've picked in the early 20s, we're kind of in the situation where, I said earlier in the show, a lot of people have said, oh, there's 15, there's 18, there's 20 guys with first round grades, that if one of those top 15 guys falls to you because other teams are taking other positions, then you just take that guy and are happy with it because you got a guy you had a first round grade on. But if not, then if all those guys are gone, then you kind of consider trading back, which I remember the year they drafted Cam Hayward, they were like, we thought he was one of the, top 20 players in the class.
Right.
And we were picking at 31 or 30 or whatever it was that year. 31. And, I think they specifically said, like, there were some teams ahead of us that took guys we didn't have first round grades on, and Cam Hayward fell to us, and we're so happy we were able to take him. So,
I mean, the Packers got Rodgers at 24.
Right.
And I don't think it'll happen, but what if Cam Ward falls to 21?
Well, then you take him. I mean,
and then, alternately scary scenario, what if Shadur Sanders falls to 21?
Then you trade.
God, please.
Okay. All right. So, since we're on this. Jalen Milroe, he does fit the 5 rule or whatever it is that the Steelers with all their draft picks, pro day visits, all that stuff. It just feels like destiny that we're going to draft this kid. And
I don't think in the first round, but
no. I don't either. I don't either in the first. But he's got a great family. He's a really, really smart kid, high achieving academic kid. Good, just a good human being. He checks a ton of boxes that the Steelers like.
He checks some other boxes where he has
he
catastrophic fuck ups, and you're like, what
absolutely,
the hell is that, dude?
And I get so worried about the fact that the Steelers feel like they need to get a quarterback. They need to get somebody with mobility, and they just see this guy and think, oh, we got to have him. We got to have him. And I know what Scarps would say if he was here right now. Scarps would say, I don't have any faith in the coaching staff to turn him into a great NFL quarterback.
This offensive coaching staff has been in place for 1 year. I don't think you can say that.
That's fair. You're right, man. Yep.
Ryan's pissed off at Mike Tomlin, and he's throwing all that shade at the entire coaching staff.
Yeah,
because Mike hires people he knows and blah blah blah. Tom Arth has been with this team for 1 year.
Right.
Let's give him a chance. Let's give him a chance to actually give us an informed opinion before we decide. He can't do it.
No, I agree with you. You got to give him time.
I'm not saying that they should take Milroe. Don't get me wrong. If they didn't take Milroe in the third and he was there in the fourth, you kind of
fourth round, absolutely.
You kind of have to do it.
Yep.
But
and to Joe's point, yes, I would use him in a similar role. You got to take advantage of a guy with speed like that.
But Arthur Smith?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other story.
Milroe to me is Malik Willis redux. It's a lot of the same traits of athleticism, big arm, but
better than that. But yeah,
just he's a little better than Malik Willis, but it seems like the same kind of stuff all over again, where it's like if he sits for 2 years like Malik Willis did, like think back a couple years ago, right? We all said Malik Willis could be a good quarterback if you give him 2 years to sit and learn. And that's kind of what the Packers did, right? Like they only played him when they absolutely had to because of injuries.
Right.
And he wasn't good in year 2, but then in year 3, it was like, oh, this guy might have figured it out a little bit. And we all said like he needs a couple years to figure it out. Like it wasn't a shock to me that he figured it out in year 3. Obviously in like year 1 when Tennessee tried to play him, he was awful. We were like, well, no surprise, right?
Yeah.
So Milroe to me is similar, that he needs at least a year, maybe more, to just kind of learn.
I think that's fair.
Red shirt almost. He's got a big arm, but his throwing sessions, like he has some absolutely awful throws on tape.
He was awful at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Bad at the Senior Bowl, struggled at the Combine, and then, of course, at his pro day, he was like 57 of 59 on his throws. Yeah. And, I mean, that stuff. I mean, there's no defense. You know what the guys are doing. I mean, to Freak's point.
4A player.
Do you just keep
4A player? Great reference, Joe.
4A player.
Yes.
Freak brought out the fact that, do you just keep drafting a guy, a quarterback every year until you finally hit one?
That's kind of what you have to do.
You really do. Yeah. I mean, look at the 49ers. I mean, they moved up. They traded a ton to get Trey Lance. He sucked. You get the Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, and he turns out to be your guy. You just don't know.
Which, speaking of bad tape, Brock Purdy had some of the worst college tape I've ever seen.
Wasn't good. His senior year sucked.
You look up like Brock Purdy, not whatever it is, like hilarious interception reel or whatever. Like he had some of the worst turnovers I've ever seen. And then to turn into the NFL quarterback that he did, I'm like, how did this guy turn into this in the pros? Like it was just ridiculous.
Coaching matters, doesn't it?
It does. Coaching does matter, but
Freak. I think that Pickett is coming up on his 30th birthday. And so he was already a 7th-year senior his rookie year in the NFL. And if you recall, last year when he actually got to play in Philly, he was awful. He was god-awful, comically awful. So I don't see him figuring it out year 3. I mean, if he does, I won't begrudge him that. Good for him. But I just don't see it.
Here's one for you. Tyler Shuck. He's the same age as Trevor Lawrence.
Jesus. And Lawrence is on his 2nd contract.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, but that's another guy. Steelers had him in for a visit, but 3 season-ending injuries too. That's hard to deal with. But
there are
and he
several guys in this class who are like 6th or 7th year seniors. Like I know we'll talk offense next week, but Dylan Gabriel from Oregon's the same kind of guy.
Yeah,
some of the Jack Kaiser, I think, from
the solid reference clip
stuff. Brandon Whedon.
On the defensive side, right? Jack Kaiser, who I mentioned from Notre Dame, I think was a 6th year senior. There's a few other guys, but this I think should be the last year of like the guys who got the free COVID year.
Yes,
right?
This should be it.
This should be it. We should get back to some normalcy after this. So
yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Next week, we will cover strictly the offense. And then the following week, it will be draft night. Is that correct?
No.
No.
We have
no,
3 weeks till the draft. So we
That's
did
right.
defense this week, offense next week, and then just like our pre-draft, what we think the Steelers will do.
Yeah, we'll have it
then
all
draft
narrowed down, and then we'll get here. Draft night is always one of our favorite shows of the year. We'll come on during the draft live and get our real time reactions as to what the Steelers do. And we try to stay off the social medias because they tip all the picks and everything. So
we stay off.
You right. We try anyway. Anyway, both Dom and Cliff are doing a great job on the draft stuff. So continue to read what they've got going and everything else at steelcityblitz.com. Check us out on the socials, Facebook, X, if you will, and Instagram and Facebook and all that wonderful stuff. So as always, thank you for joining us tonight. We will see you next Thursday. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.
I hope so, Cliff.